The anointed one has gotten the message. He's so far left that he's even out of step now with the Democratic Party. And joining me now with analysis is the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, Crimes Against Liberty, an indictment of President Barack Obama. The one and only David Limbaugh is back on the program. David, by the way, 2 weeks in a row, #1 New York Times. Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate you having me on again.
Well, by the way, this, to me, is the definitive book on the election and the case against Barack Obama. You know, it's interesting because I got an early copy of your column, which will appear tomorrow, and you say something I was going to ask you about off the top because I read your book cover to cover, and, you know, all the elements and descriptions about President Obama, his narcissism, being thin-skinned, class warfare, et cetera, militant partisanship. Well, that happened with his attack on Boehner this week. Class warfare was brought up this week. They're treating me like a dog. That was brought up this week, meaning his critics. It's almost like that you've nailed his personality.
Yeah, it's almost like everything he's doing now is validating the themes in my book. I have whole sections on his narcissism and how he's thin-skinned, really saying that they're treating me like a dog is so unbecoming and so unpresidential. You'll notice Bush never complained, despite being castigated for 8 years by these people, by the hard left. And in that very speech where Obama was complaining about people mistreating him, he was dogging on Bush again, mistreating him worse than he's ever been mistreated in that speech, blaming him for his own failed policies. He's got a completely incoherent tax policy where he's going to have targeted tax cuts for research and development. In 1 year, he's going to allow businesses write-offs, so a little bit of supply side. And then on the other hand, he's going to extend, he's going to let the Bush tax cuts expire for small businesses. It's just going to destroy the incentive to grow on small business. So it's two like muscles working against each other. It can't work.
What do you make of the strategy that is obviously emerging? You know, there's always somebody to demonize. You know, Wall Street, fat cat bankers.
Yeah.
You know, when in doubt, you blame Bush. Now he's targeted John Boehner. Do you think that strategy is going to be effective?
No. Do you remember? It's really juvenile. Do you remember when, and he claimed that he would be post-partisan and one of these conciliatory guys usher in a new era of politics, and he always attacks. It's like the Alinsky policy strategy. He will pick a target, isolate it, and demonize it. And the purpose of that is so he can avoid talking about the substantive issues and make it an us against them thing. So he had this Carville strategy about demonizing Rush Limbaugh. He thought he could taint the entire Republican Party because Rush was a little controversial by tainting them with him. Now he thinks because this election is about Congress, which it is, Boehner's the leader of Congress. If he demonizes Boehner, then the theory is that we won't want any of these congressional Republicans candidates to win because they'll all become little Boehners. But it's so juvenile. There's no way that's going to work because Obama is destroying our fiscal integrity. And by the way, in that speech, he says he's committed to fiscal responsibility. Yeah. What planet might he be inhabiting right now?
Yeah, I don't know. But I will say this. I think it proves a point that I picked up on very early on as it relates to Obama. He's rigid, he's ideological, and he's radical. You know, you used an interesting term in the book, that he developed and cultivated a messianic image. You know,
yes.
I think the stubbornness on the $50 billion new stimulus, which is, I guess, the grandson of stimulus, because this is now the fourth one, you know, it makes you think, I think it kind of proves that point. Does he really believe that he's right?
I think I vacillate back and forth whether he's Mr. Magoo or Machiavelli, and I'm leaning toward Magoo now because he's proposing this $50 billion stimulus for infrastructure when his $1 trillion stimulus almost, which was supposed to be for infrastructure largely, and it was only 7% infrastructure, didn't work and didn't do anything to boost the economy. And by the way, Sean, an important thing, this election is not just about the economy. It's about people being horrified at a guy in office that doesn't share our values about America. He's injected Obamacare, which is a metastatic cancer on our freedoms. He's Mirandizing jihadists.
What do you mean by he doesn't share our values? Because I agree with you, but I want to hear your explanation.
He goes around the world apologizing for America because we're dismissive and arrogant and imperialistic and consuming too much of the world's resources. And he's now, as I said, Obamacare is destroying the best health care system in the world. It is going to suppress and smother our liberties across the board and empower the government to encroach in all areas of our lives. He is spending us into bankruptcy. It's not just about the economy alone. It's about people's fearfulness about losing the precious liberties that this nation is founded on.
Well, I got to tell you, my friend and David Limbaugh, Crimes Against Liberty and Indictment of President Barack Obama. By the way, congratulations. 2 weeks in a row, #1 on the New York Times. And I think the definitive book heading into the election and most informative. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me very much. Appreciate it.
We appreciate it, and we got plenty more to come.